All right, let's talk some college football with Bruce Feldman. You see him on Fox Sports. You read him at The Athletic, at Bruce Feldman CFB on Twitter. He's with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. What's up, Bruce? How are you?
I'm doing well. By the way, did you ever think that you would be mentioned as a representative of an academic institution of any kind?
Jim?
I did not. No. And I get a chance, Bruce, a little humble brag. I go into their Sports Hall of Fame at Montevallo next week. So I'm looking forward to that.
That is awesome. Well, congrats on that.
Well, and Bruce, remember, it's a Southern education. So
that's right.
Kayvon Thibodeau goes so far down here.
Kayvon Thibodeau says it barely counts.
As somebody who took 6 years to graduate college and got no advanced degrees and did a stint in the junior college, and I am, as long as you get through it, no matter what it is, that's important.
That's right, Bruce. You've done very well with that. A New York Times bestselling author. We got some coaching upheaval, both at Alabama and potentially at Auburn. So let's start with the potentially at Auburn first. You're reporting, and the Athletic reporting, that Derek Mason is at least pretty high on the list for a replacement for Jim Knowles there at Oklahoma State. Where does that stand right now, you think?
My understanding is that he was there yesterday in Stillwater. Look, from what I've heard on this side, I don't think he and Brian Harsin are exactly on the same page with some stuff, and so maybe there's a little friction there. And looking at it, obviously it wasn't they finished 6-6, but I think they were fourth in the SEC in yards per play allowed. I don't think you would say it was on the defensive side of the ball that was the biggest issue there. Right now, Mike Gundy's been looking for a while to find a replacement for Jim Knowles, who left to go to Ohio State, did a terrific job there. They've had, just today, they had one of their best players, a defensive back, just go in the portal. I think anytime you've had a long lag time of uncertainty of who's going to be running the defense, I think players start to get a little antsy. So I think they would like to have something done. Now, my understanding is Derek Mason has a few other people who are interested in him as well. So we'll see where this goes. I know there's definite interest in Mason, and we'll see how, if he really wants to take this job or what he's thinking after he comes out of Stillwater.
Well, when he was at Stanford, obviously, you being on the West Coast, you saw he had some really, really good years as their DC, and then he took the Vanderbilt job, and Bruce, we all know nobody wins at Vanderbilt. Is his ultimate goal, though, to get back to being a head coach?
Yeah, that's what I was told by somebody close to him actually yesterday when this started to come up, was that, yes, he does want to be a head coach again. He's 52, as you mentioned. James Franklin's the only guy who had any success there in a long, long time. So I don't know what that path looks like. If he goes to Oklahoma State and does well, he's early 50s. As you mentioned, he is a guy. He's originally from Arizona, but had a lot of success in the Pac-12 at Stanford. He's a guy who I could definitely see being on some people's radar in the Pac-12 if he, has a good run as a DC here. I think people look at it and go, that's really tough to win at Vandy. He did some decent things there. He just couldn't really sustain it and break through. But maybe there's other jobs out there. But I would expect that, whether it's this job or potentially even an NFL job of some sort, I would not at all be surprised if he was leaving Auburn after 1 year.
Bruce Feldman is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Before we talk about the potential moves in other SEC schools, the head coaching job at Michigan is still something that you guys are having to follow there, because it keeps having rumblings of Jim Harbaugh still maybe interested in the NFL, but also working on a contract maybe to stay at Michigan and get a raise after this great year. Where are you right now, Bruce, on the Harbaugh saga? Do you think he's back in Ann Arbor?
I think it's at best 50-50 on that, because as you mentioned, there's been some preliminary talks on a new contract. I don't think, and I could be wrong on this, and the thing is with Jim Harbaugh, this isn't one of those situations where everyone's like, oh, yeah, the agent is driving this or whatever. With Jim Harbaugh, was really not an agent. There's no like Jimmy Sexton figure that behind the scenes that people are always rumbling about. People assume that on every coaching story like this, but it's not that way with this. Jim Harbaugh broke into coaching with the Raiders. He has still a good relationship with Mark Davis, the owner. people say, even people who are pretty close to Jim say he's very hard to read on this stuff. The story that I reported yesterday was just this. I had asked several people within the last 48 hours inside the Michigan program, what do you think he would do if he's offered the job? And they all said, each of them said, I think he'd take it. Now, they don't know that for a fact, but that's the read on it. People there have thought at some point he's going to want to go back and become an NFL head coach again. He almost won a Super Bowl. I mean, this is not, by the way, a case of, Urban Meyer was just a debacle in Jacksonville. As wildly successful he was as a college coach, I think there's a lot of people, after Urban Meyer's failure in Jacksonville, as spectacular as it was, who will say, well, these college coaches, they don't know what they're getting into when they go to the NFL. Jim Harbaugh is not that guy. Jim Harbaugh spent like 15 years as an NFL quarterback. He coached in the NFL. And then when he went to the 49ers, they hadn't had a winning season in 8 years. He got him to a Super Bowl in year 2. He was 44-19. That, he's a guy who will have a lot more, credibility as he comes into it than some of these college coaches who might think of it. So the feeling was Jim Harbaugh, now 58, if he really wants to get back at some point to be an NFL head coach, this might be the time to do it. Keep in mind, he'd never been anywhere longer than 4 years till Michigan. He's been at Michigan now 7 years. Obviously just won a Big Ten title, just beat the arch rival. Ohio State beat them soundly. It was the first time in 8 years. So I think that's added to why people think, the timing might be right for him to make the move.
Bruce Feldman is with us, Fox Sports and The Athletic, at Bruce Feldman CFB on Twitter. You and your colleague Aaron Suttles, our colleague Aaron Suttles, reporting as well that Alabama looks like they are making a youth movement a little bit on the defensive side. Defensive backs coach for Miami, Travaris Robinson, the former Auburn star, a former defensive coordinator at South Carolina, looks like he's joining the Alabama staff. Bama Online reporting that Ole Miss special teams coordinator Coleman Hutzler, who is 37, is joining the Alabama staff. That is those are big stories. You reported more, though, on the Travaris Robinson story, which seemed on the recruiting side to be very interesting to you.
Yes, by the way, if we're calling a 40-year-old a youth movement, it tells you how old we are.
Well, I'm 45, so it qualifies, yeah.
I know, and I'm older than that. So.
Well, his boss is 70.
Yeah, that's right. It's all a youth movement, yeah.
Yeah, good point. But the boss doesn't act like any normal 70-year-old. So
he does not.
He has a lot more energy than all that. So, but so what Aaron and I had reported, multiple sources told us that he is expected to take the job, from my understanding. He is one of the few people on the staff who was a position coach, who Mario Cristobal, who really would have liked to have kept in that capacity. He's a Miami native. He obviously has SEC coordinating experience from his time at South Carolina. A lot of people really liked him around I think it was not that easy of a decision, just like his hometown, from what I understand, was Robinson was kind of weighing Miami over Alabama and ultimately decided he was going to come back to the SEC. It's a good addition. I mean, you got a guy who obviously played at Auburn, was a really good player there, and knows the SEC really well. From everything we've heard, I don't know if one of the DB coaches who's moved on, I don't know if that didn't seem like it was a very good fit, and so I think they feel comfortable that this will work out a little better for them.
First Mario Williams, now Latrell McCutcheon. Oklahoma players slowly trickling over and following their former boss Lincoln Riley to USC. What's taking so long with Caleb Williams?
From what I was told, his dad is going to be very, very thorough and diligent. He has an advisor who runs this big, quarterback operation out here at QB Collective. He's, connected to a lot of NFL people. And I think a big piece of this was, let's make sure that whatever Caleb's next move is, that it is with a situation that is best going to prepare him to hit the ground running when he gets to the NFL. Now obviously they picked Lincoln Riley a couple of years ago. He knows that system. And from everything I've heard, Caleb really likes Lincoln, even whether Lincoln, left, and surprised a lot of people that he jumped to USC. From everything I've heard from people who are connected there, they said, Caleb is really good with Lincoln still. So I mean, I'd be surprised if Caleb Williams ended up someplace else. I mean, nothing probably should shock us these days in college football, but I would expect that's where he'll end up. But we'll see. I mean, it's a little surprising that's dragged on this long. I was told by somebody around Oklahoma that I trust on it. It was like, I thought he was gonna announce for USC the middle of last week, and that did not happen.
I know the saying, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Georgia's the national champs. So once you climb the mountain, you start worrying about other things. Stetson Bennett announces he's coming back. And on the surface, you'd think, oh, great, our national championship winning quarterback is coming back. That's great news. But I'm watching the reaction from some Georgia fans, and instantly you start thinking about who we possibly could be losing if Stetson Bennett comes back. And where do you think Georgia fans are falling on Stetson's return? Does this surprise you, not surprise you at all? What did you think of that announcement from Stetson yesterday?
I was really on the podcast I do with Stu Mandel, we were taping it. He was expecting Stetson to move on, whether he would be a free agent in the NFL or just go on and be like a GA, or I was like, I don't understand why you think that, because this kid, from the time he was incredibly young, maybe 4 or 5 years old, his dream was to be the quarterback of Georgia football. He went through everything up and down and transferred in and out and got, people doubted him everywhere, inside the program at one point, definitely outside the program. He finally, gets the job and leads them to the national title. I mean, dream come true. Why would we think he would let go of that? What does he do then? Oh, I'm just going to go, go golf and hang out on the 19th hole after, he's worked so hard to get this. I was of course he's going to come back, and, they're going to have a great offensive line next year. It'll probably be even better than the group was there. We know there's going to be a lot of, still going to be a lot of talent, even though there's a bunch of, dudes going on in the NFL on defense. I was of course he's going to come back. I mean, this is I'm guessing he was going to live every moment of this, whether, if he could get 3 more years of this, I'm guessing he probably would do it.
But what about Kirby? You think Kirby's happy he comes back? It sort of ties his hand to who the starter is, and that was often debated all year long. Is he the best quarterback in the room?
Yeah, he led them to a national title. That hasn't happened since Ryan was probably 4.
You nailed that. That is exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, the junior college math kicked in good.
6 years.
No, it would. Even if he, if I'm Kirby, I'm elated, right? This is the guy who led us to a national title. And obviously, there's great pieces around him, but he played well. He played really well in the semifinal game. So he responded. He's proven under pressure. He makes plays with his legs. I don't really know at this point. If I'm him, being Kirby, I'm awesome. I'd love to have this guy leading the program. He knows what we expect. And it's if Caleb Williams said, I want to go to Georgia, that would be an interesting thought process for the Georgia staff. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just saying at this point, JT Daniels is talented. He's a different kind of quarterback than Stetson Bennett, but it's not we don't we know this guy now can win a national title. We know he can, and this is a critical piece that for a quarterback. How does he respond to pressure? This guy responds really well to pressure.
All right, he is Bruce Feldman. Go read him at The Athletic. Subscribe and read him there. Read his stuff there. Go watch him on Fox Sports. Get his books. He's a New York Times bestseller. At Bruce Feldman, CFB on Twitter. Bruce, it is always fun. We greatly appreciate the time and the info.
Anytime, guys. I enjoy it. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Take care. Bruce with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.